Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. We're looking at another parable today. Remember, I told you about over the last couple of weeks. Parables are what Jesus taught, and we're going to call them life lessons. And the one that we're going to be looking at today may be addressing a problem that is probably, I'm going to say, the most prevalent among humanity right now. And that is essentially on how we look at other people and how we judge other people. And the selfishness that we have towards what other people are doing, whether they're living at the lives that we expect them to or not, and they're living up to our standards. And we're passing judgment on people every single day. We do it in almost everything we do, and we need to be careful of that. And Jesus is going to talk about this. So what I'm going to be reading to you right now is Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 to 5. And I want you to listen to what Jesus says here. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own? How can you say to your brother, let me take that speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. The short answer is, or the short definition or the short explanation for this is mind your own business. Okay? You have no right to point out everybody else's faults when you have many of your own. It's just that simple. That is exactly what Jesus is saying here. But there's also an added element. See, when he was speaking in the Sermon on the Mount, which this is part of, the Jewish leaders and scribes and religious leaders and political leaders were all there too. So they could hear him talking. And he was also talking to them because they always pass judgment on everybody. If a person didn't live up to the Jewish law, they condemned these people and they basically threw them out of the temple. They didn't let them worship anymore. They passed judgment that only God can do. Now, we do this every day in our society. We watch the news and we see what's going on in places that maybe nearby us or someplace else in the world, and we see what people are doing. And what do? We scoff at them. We just like, I can't believe those people are doing it, or what's to be expected from those people. Those people are like that. That's a problem, and that is what Jesus is telling us not to do. He's telling us, don't look at what that person is doing and condemning them and judging them, because you've got a lot of problems of your own that you need to straighten out. So essentially, Jesus is saying when somebody else is doing whatever they're doing, mind your own business. But there's also another element to that. If you are a believer, if you have accepted God's gift of salvation and you are part of his family, and you see somebody else that is also a believer, that is in his family also, and they're doing something wrong, well, most certainly you can point it out to them, but you can't judge them. You can tell them, listen, what you're doing is wrong and God is not going to like that. However, if somebody you see that you want to approach about that is not a believer, then you get a problem, because they're just going to scoff back at you. So it's best to just not judge them. You can always say certainly something like, hey, you know what you're doing is wrong. You shouldn't be doing that, and leave it at that. But you don't condemn them. And that is, realistically, those are in rare circumstances, because for the most part, you and I are not looking at other people as if they're believers or not. We just don't do that. That's just human nature. So it's best to treat everybody as you are. Treat everybody the same as you. Okay? If somebody else is doing something wrong, if somebody's doing something you don't like, that's their problem. That's between them and God. It's got nothing to do with you. Keep that in mind. Jesus said, however you judge, you will be judged the same way. So if you're going to scoff at somebody and you're going to condemn them for what they're doing, you're going to be condemned for that. And that's something we all have to be careful of, because like I said at the beginning, we do this every day in almost everything we do. So just keep in mind that your relationship with God is between you and Him. So and so's relationship with God is between them and God. It's got nothing to do with you. And when you start to separate yourself from that kind of thinking, you're going to find that you're going to be able to get through life and get through your day a lot easier because you're not going to be worried about everybody else and what they're doing. Okay? Get this log out of your eye before you get the speck out of somebody else's eye. Have yourself a great week.